Coming up, the Saudi Arabian ambassador talks about his country's relationship with the U.S.
Today's program features His Royal Highness Prince Bandar bin Sultan bin Abdulaziz. He is Ambassador of Saudi Arabia to the United States. He has served in that position since 1983 and is now the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps in Washington, D.C. Prince Bandar was born in Saudi Arabia in March of 1949 at Taif, which is the summer capital of the kingdom. He graduated from the British Royal Air Force College in Cranwell, England in 1968 and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Royal Saudi Air Force. He carried also special assignments, political assignments in the United States, working with members of Congress during the debates over the sale of F-15s back in 1978 and then the AWACS sale in 1981, which many of you will remember. He is married to Princess Haifa bint Faisal. They have 4 sons and 4 daughters, perfect symmetry. Please join me in welcoming His Royal Highness Prince Bandar.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Wells. And I want to thank everybody who is in this hall with us today. And since we are on national radio, also I thank the listeners and hope they bear with us. Saudi-American relationship from the perspective of the United States of America is truly bipartisan. It started with President Roosevelt, and it continued since then. And we had very excellent working relationship with every president since President Roosevelt. The Saudi views of the relationship also is very solid in the sense that in our part of the world there were colonial powers. Now, my country has never been a colony. And our relationship with the United States of America started not with the United States government, but with the private sector when Standard Oil of California came over and helped us to find oil. At that time, and I have to explain to you why we were never a colony. Before the oil, we had nothing to colonize except sands and camels and dates. And after the oil discovery, it was not fashionable to colonize. So we escaped by the grace of God. However, it was a handshake between our leaders and your leaders that made the relationship. And it was a handshake between our leaders and leaders of your private sector that started it all. Since then, the media, some of my friends in the Congress, some people in the academia, all had fun of predicting the collapse of the Saudi-American relationship. Needless to say, here I am here, and the relationship is kicking and strong. Why? Because there are reasons. Saudi Arabia has never been a strategic liability to the United States of America. If anything, it has always been a strategic asset. Second, we pull our weight when we share facing problems. And third, nothing the United States government or the United States, the American people, have done in my country is something to antagonize the majority of the people there. In fact, the relationship has been of mutual respect, mutual interests, and other than our differences from time to time on the Arab-Israeli, Palestinian-Israeli issue, really there are no problems that we cannot cooperate on or see eye to eye on. Well, of course, 9/11 changed all of that. And changed it not in the sense that my government or my people have changed, but it changed it because somebody hijacked a great religion and somebody was driven with evil intentions, and they decided that the Saudi-American relationship should be part of their objectives when they did 9/11. And I'll address that later on, I guess, with the questions. I have never worried in the last 20 years as ambassador or in the few years before that when I was working with your government and Congress. The differences always used to be political. And if you live in Washington long enough, I don't have to even explain it to you. And particularly since you have this cyclic, silly season that comes every 4 years, where common sense becomes less relevant and playing the game is more relevant, we managed to adapt. 9/11 shook me to the roots, and so did to most Saudis, because the confidence that was shaken was not with the Congress, media, or even with the administration's federal government, but it was with the American people. And that matters to us. To me, that is much more serious than anything else that we went through in the last 70, 60 years. This is part of the reason why I'm here, and I'm grateful for being asked to be with you. I think with that, I would like to just open it for questions, let you decide which is the area you are interested in so we can concentrate on it and I don't waste your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This young population gets its information, and the first asks whether anti-Western attitudes are not taught in both the schools and the mosques, and if so, what is the kingdom doing about that?
Yes, we all are smarter after the fact. Nothing that happened before 9/11 was secret, if you want. It was there. It's just all of us were on autopilot, I guess, and we're just cruising along and thinking, oh, this cannot be that bad, or this is silly, or so on. When we were shocked by 9/11, we, all of us, you here and we in our part of the world, took another look. There's always, like everything else, there's good news, bad news. The bad news, we found some of these ugly things do exist. The good news, it is not anywhere near as much as people made it sound in this country. For example, we took a look at all our curriculums, education. We found 95% of the curriculum was neutral on these issues or positive. 85%. But we found 15% that bothered us. 10%, yes, borderline, but we changed it. 5% was not good, and that was changed. But if you read the papers here or watch the media, you'll never believe that this is the case. You'd think everybody and their mother are a Bin Laden supporter. That's not true. And there were things, I'm always reminded of a book I read a long time ago called The Invisible Man. And that book has a beautiful sentence that it starts with. It says, I am an invisible man, not because I don't exist, but because you choose not to see me. And the truth of the matter is, we all chose not to see what was under our nose. In fact, up to today, this is what, 2 years since 9/11. Until now, there are people that are still in Europe who are still preaching hate, that neither you or us can get these governments to hand them over. And the question becomes, how much do people know this? There was a headline story the other day in the Washington Times, where we get most of our support in Washington, jokingly. But I thought this is the best way to pay them back, to accuse them of being pro-Saudis. The headline was fascinating. A major gathering in London of few hundreds of people, or a few thousand, celebrating the 9/11. Jihadist group, supporters of Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, that kind, are meeting in London to celebrate, listen carefully, 9/11. Can you imagine if this was in Riyadh? This would be, we would have told, you see, the whole government, the whole people there are Bin Ladens. Why is it okay for those people to meet in London and celebrate and support the attack on 9/11, and London is not called collaborating with terrorists, and when it's in Saudi Arabia, it is looked at differently? My point is, freedom and democracy both are obligation and responsibility. And you cannot have it, nothing in life is free lunch. I believe we have taken enough steps that will prove to be the right steps. Should we have done it before? Yeah. But can you imagine if the President of the United States of America on the 9th of September addressed the nation and said, in 2 days, people will come with small knives, hijack airplanes, attack New York and Washington, and therefore I decided to send 3 divisions to occupy Afghanistan. People will impeach him. But 2 days later, this was not as fantastic as people thought. There is enough blame to go around. What's for sure is we need to focus, keep our eye on the ball and on the enemy. It is important for our American friend to understand the clerics that we reprimanded, or the ones that we suspended from work, we didn't do it to please the United States of America. We did it because what they were doing was wrong. We did it because it violated the essence of our religion. That is really why we did it, and that's the only way we could have done it. Because there is this misperception that because we are a monarchy, we don't have to worry about public opinion or constituency. Trust me, it's just as bad. And we have to be very responsive to our constituents, if you want. And it breaks my heart to think that during the Inquisition in Europe, Protestants and Jews used to escape to Morocco to hide with the Muslims there. Why? Because they were tolerant and respected other religions. What happened over the last 1,000 years? And why was it right then and wrong now? So what I'm trying to say is those people who we had to take stand against them, we took it to protect our religion, which is against what they're preaching or doing. Second, schools overseas. The madrasa, as they call it. You know, there is nothing more dangerous than people who have half information or half knowledge, but act like they have full knowledge. Those are more dangerous than people who know they're doing something wrong and they do it. And this nation, institutionally, have been blessed with short memory. The madrasas that people talk about, particularly in Pakistan, near Afghanistan, that area, was a joint venture between us and you. When we were fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan, people forget that part of the problem we faced today is not because we failed in Afghanistan in the 80s, but we are paying a high price for our success and our laissez-faire attitude after we won. The United States and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia spent over $7 billion in Afghanistan helping, guess who? The Mujahideen to fight the Russians, the Soviets, until we got them out of Afghanistan. My house in Washington is about 2 miles from the CIA. There is no relation there, but physical, geography. And my office and the CIA and the Defense Department and the State Department in the 80s was like headquarters for the Mujahideen. In fact, my first meeting with Bin Laden was 84, I think 85. He came with one of his brothers to thank me for convincing the Americans to help our brothers Afghanis to fight the Russians. The problem is, once we won that war, we ignored the whole area. After spending $7 billion, again, no blame assigned, we all were partners. This is just the same our mistake as yours. If we had enough patience to stay focused for 6 months and spend $200 million, $100 million each, to collect these weapons and get those people to start building roads, hospitals, schools, there will be no Taliban or Al-Qaeda, in my judgment. We ignored it. Yes, at that time, events, big things were happening. In the Cold War, Soviet Union was collapsing, Berlin Wall was collapsing, then Saddam got us all busy, etc. But we ignored the place, and the little monster we created came back to bite us. Now, the madrasas was a joint Saudi-American idea in the sense that there are a lot of orphans that are orphaned in Afghanistan. Instead of just running a UN camp for them and feeding them and keeping them in tents, people decide, why don't we open schools, teach them only religion, tell them that God is their support and the communist atheists are their enemy, and give them food and shelter and clothes and send them back to the war. We had a great pool of personnel to go fight that war. Again, by the time this was over, we never looked at them again. And those people knew only one thing to do. When that one thing was not available as profession, they began to be easy people to recruit and then directed against all of us because we did not take care of it at the time. So right now, Saudi Arabia is not financing or supporting any organization outside the country that will preach, quote unquote, hate or will take the side of the extremists.
For bringing about, making the Middle East and the Gulf region hospitable to democracy and liberalization. Were they right? Is this something that Saudi Arabia would welcome? And were there elections there today? What sort of government would emerge?
I think there's too much romantic talk about governance or how different forms of governments. Nobody, by instinct, by nature, is against freedom. But freedom is not absolute, as we know. And the way I look at it, that democracy as perceived in the West or in the United States are the cure-all for everybody else's problem, I just think there is a little bit of intellectual arrogance here, because it didn't solve a lot of your problems here. And I believe, therefore, when you look at, can we make Saudi Arabia democratic like the United States? It reminds me of transplant, whether it's heart or kidney or... Mechanically, there's no sophistication in it. You cut whatever it is, you take a needle, you sew it back somewhere else. But it didn't work for centuries. Why? Because the body rejects foreign elements that are introduced to it. When did it succeed? When science and medicine and time created anti-rejection medicine. So now before you give somebody a transplant, you give them that medication. Once they take that medication, the body now is ready, then you do the transplant. My government, although we are monarchy, but trust me, has been in leadership position in my country since 1747. Now, you can call us many things. Politically stupid, we are not. And we are not holy monarchies or ceremonial monarchies. We are working monarchies, meaning every day we keep our thumb on the pulse of the people. If it's too fast, we go too fast. If it's too slow, we know we have time. We are your friends. We're proud of being your friends. In fact, there was a time when it used not to be fashionable to be your friends, and we were. Now you are the only game in town. Of course everybody wants to be your friend. Everybody wants to be like you. But we are not you. We are different. And I believe it's okay to be different and still be friends. The world will be ugly, or at least not a world I would like to live in, if we all were alike. But it is important for you to know that the king or government or royal family cannot dictate everything they want to their people. One simple example, we did not have schools for girls until 1964. Girls were not allowed to go to school, period. Now, somebody with half knowledge of and laziness to find out really the depth of the question in another culture that's 8,000 miles away will say, see, this is a reactionary government. Actually, it wasn't. How do I know? The king at that time sent his daughter to Switzerland to go to school. How do I know? Because I married her. Now, why would this reactionary king who does not want women to go to school send his girl to get school, not only school, but in Switzerland? Because he could not get majority of the people to support him, to have schools for girls. But we didn't sit on our royal rear ends and did nothing. We did what your presidents or administration do. We lobbied. We lobbied privately, we lobbied publicly, we lobbied the religious leader, the business community, the tribal. And when the king was comfortable that when he makes such a decision, he will have majority of his people with him, we made it. We had to send in the army to protect schools for women. Now, 2003, 51% of the population in our schools are women. We could have done it your way and said, there shall be a royal decree and women must go to school. We would have had revolution probably at that time. So we always choose, if we can do it without upsetting the whole social fiber of our nation, we'd rather do it that way. Or have what they call an evolution instead of revolution. There comes a time when you have to confront. But it is easy to sit in San Francisco and enjoy the bay and all the amenities here and say, why don't they do that in Saudi Arabia? Well, you come and try it yourself if you can.
For security reasons, I'm going to ask that people stay in their seats until His Majesty leaves. And
Don't get me in trouble. I'm not My Majesty.
Sorry, I've just promoted you.
I know. That's deadly.
On behalf of the World Affairs Council of Northern California, I would like to thank His Royal Highness Prince Bandar for sharing his thoughts with us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.